Hey, you guys just got back from an event with a special partner of ours, Eberly Stock. The event was called Out There. Unfortunately, I missed it, and look at that. Obviously, you've got great merch from them. But I was out flying yesterday, and I was actually using the Eberly Stock as part of the kind of search and rescue ruck, and it was pretty sweet. I couldn't tell you which one it was because I've got a couple of them, but like these guys have got an enormous lineup of products, whether it's military, Molly, law enforcement, or just overall hiking and camping. I like some of their tech apparel too is pretty freaking sweet. What did you guys experience Out There?
Oh man, Out There was the world's best thing. So Eberly Stock has great everyday use stuff as well. Like not only the hunting things, they just released their brand new Tactical Advantage Recon modular harness system. It's essentially changing the way that people carry when they go bow hunting or when they're in the backcountry. But the everyday stuff is the stuff that I like the best. Like their Switchblade backpack, that's my everyday go-to backpack. The Bando bag is actually a low vis. It looks like a fanny pack, except it's badass and you can conceal carry in it. It's amazing. Like that's probably my favorite part of their new lineup is they have everyday stuff that helps you conceal carry because, hey man, they're proud Americans and supporters of America in general over at Eberly Stock. They're just a group of great Americans. So go over to eberlystock.com and check out their full lineup. The technical apparel is amazing. Hey, the summer is great. It's summer now, but guess what happens after summer? It's time for those hunts and time to get some winter on. And if you're going to be out in the backcountry, you're going to need some Eberly Stock stuff.
Yeah, the Glenn Eberly is a former Olympian, Air Force veteran. So like the company is built on innovation and a love for our country and, veterans and everything else like that. So you see that in the products is it's always pushing the envelope to get better and better and listening to, and we saw it when we were out there. They listen to the feedback from the field. Like the guys overseas, when they come back, they say, hey, this was great. You might want to work on this just a little bit. So they support us. They support all the vets and all the LEO folks out there. They're super patriotic and they're super innovative. So I've used their stuff for a lot of years and it's fantastic. Can't recommend it enough.
Absolutely. Yeah, so go check them out, eberlystock.com. Use the promo code OR10. That's OR10. Get a sweet discount. And then again, check out some of their stuff. The F1 mainframe. I just can't speak enough about them. Good stuff. Keep doing the great work you guys are doing, actually.
Yeah, for real. And the everyday carry, man, go poke around that everyday carry tab and that everyday carry lineup. That's my favorite, man. Low vis stuff for you to use, and for a paranoid guy like me, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable. And Eberly Stock made it fashionable for me to be paranoid. So shout out, thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You've got Trent and I, and I'm not sure if anybody actually recognizes who's on the third screen. You're kind of a nobody. I mean, if we're going to be honest,
just a lifelong E4 TACP. That's it. I never grew
E4
up.
Mafia for life, baby.
Even when they did give me promotions, I still refused to grow up.
Well, we've got Jared Taylor from Black Rifle Coffee Company, but really, you're not known for that. You're known for being a TACP.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what you are.
Or the most vocal TACP, I guess. I mean, I was like the first TACP on social media. where
still might be the only TACP.
Like that was like MySpace. They were like, you have to get off that fucking thing. Get off of it.
That was a legitimate thing. That was social media is the devil, and you should not be outspoken, and you should be a quiet professional and not talk about anything that you do or the community, which that has served us so well.
I was arguing that point in the early 2000s when they would yell at me about that, and I said, well, guess what? Everybody in Congress knows what a Navy SEAL is. So when something comes across their desk to fund a Navy SEAL, they go, "Oh, that's cool. That's Charlie Sheen. I'm in." I go, "No one knows who the fuck we are, which is why we don't have any money. It's why I'm using things from Vietnam still.
That's true.
It's why you guys don't even like. We had one computer in our office when I was an airman, and oh, by the way, back then there was no such thing as a firewall. Like you could go to any website you wanted to while you were at work."
That's a bad thing. That's why they put firewalls up there.
Yeah, because of us.
There was some interesting email content for sure back in the day. stuff that was slightly inappropriate.
I do miss the reply all squadron emails when guys like Stefan Jorgensen and stuff would just chime into the entire unit. Like, those were some of the funniest things I've ever seen in my career.
Well, I can do you one better. That reply all still happens, except the distros have gotten bigger. So you have Air Force wide emails where people are replying all, or there is for whatever a glitch, and even though somebody's just hitting reply, it still replies all, and it shuts down the entire SIPR or Nipper network. So that still happens. That just happened last week, actually, with Nipper. So
too funny. Too funny.
But yeah, so welcome to the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I know we've talked about it a couple times. We've had to reschedule, so definitely appreciate you taking the time out, because I know that you're busy with Black Rifle. You're busy racing cars. You're still and one of the things that I definitely want to talk about was how, like, you were active duty. When did you end active duty?
2014, November 3rd.
Okay, so 2014, you ended active duty, and then you went guard, and you stayed guard for a little bit, but then you stopped that.
So that was
you were still one of
very interesting piece there. If you want to expand on the whole why and what was going down there,
go for it.
So it's kind of and this is a testament to how things have changed now, because they're finally working for us rather than against us. Because this was a big black eye on the Air Force back then. Like they, when I was an instructor in 2011, the AGAO did their road show, with their staff, that essentially that was kind of the opening the doors of behavioral health. So they came out and they pulled all the instructors in an auditorium, and they briefed us of, hey, this is kind of when they first, and this is 2011. It was like, all of a sudden they went, oh God, we've been at war since 2002, and our sociopathic murderers are starting to not be able to come home and not be what we told them they need to be. So that was when they started preaching the whole, hey, there should not be a stigma with these organizations on base. We encourage you to go, like, yada, yada, yada. And at that time, I was at a breaking point. January 2010, we had lost Brad Smith. Later that year, we lost Danny Sanchez. And Danny Sanchez was somebody that I spent every other day with. So it's like, yeah, you have those guys that you knew, or a guy that was in your unit, or a dude that was in the Army that you served with for a few months or something. But now here's somebody that I saw every other day. We skateboarded, we played music. Our group of friends in Fort Walton Beach back then was so much fun. And it was a riot. Like, we were all still kind of skater punk rock kids that listened to Blink 182, played music in the living room, and just raged. And then shortly after that, we lost Cullen Tal, which is a TACP from the 14th ASOS that had just got picked up for ST. These were all people that I was with every weekend, as a young kid and stuff like that. So it was piling on one after another. And so I finally decided, like, all right, I'll listen to what they said. I'll go in. So I go in, do the first few meetings. I wasn't a fan, because back then, again, they didn't have the resources. They sit you down with someone with a social worker degree. Like, I the first time I sat down was with some woman, and I asked her credentials. Like, who are you, and what am I going to gain from speaking to you? Well, I'm a social worker. I'm like, you know nothing about war. You know nothing about what we experience. And what the fuck do you have to offer me? Like, you're going to tell me what you read in a book or a theory that you have? Like, I am a huge, like, hard foot in the sand with people that are theory versus reality. Everybody loves to brief some fucking horseshit idea that, no, that doesn't work in reality. And this was kind of one of them. It was like, you have zero experience in warfare. You have everything that you're going to tell me is from a book. So I'm already shutting down. So they ended up moving me to an actual dock, an AFSOC dock. That's where I finally got some real, like, where I felt comfortable and headway and things like that. Well, right off the bat, he just throws prescriptions at me. Like, we're putting you on this, we're putting you on this, we're putting you on this. And oh, by the way, as an instructor, I am in this gray area hold medically because I do not have to maintain a class 3 flight physical. I came from the 14th ASOS, so I had a flying physical. But as an instructor, I'm not a jumper, so you don't have to maintain it. You have to maintain a general PHA that any normal Air Force person has to have. Well, while I was an instructor, they created the GBC, the ground-based controller physical, but we didn't have to abide by it. So upon leaving the schoolhouse, which was a 4-year tour, now I have to go to a unit and I have to get re-medically qualified. And as I walk into flight medicine in Holloman Air Force Base, which is an RPA base, so the flight docs are just dealing with RPA pilots, and the flight doc opens my record and is like, "Oh no, you have things in here that disqualify you from the GBC." I'm like, all those things in there are because of the job I was doing the last fucking decade. So I told her right then, I go, "You're wrong, and I'm going to prove you wrong." And she got all uppity and it got into this kind of yelling match, me and a captain. I walk out, luckily at the time I had my film and design firm that me and Gary Stevens started in Fort Walton Beach called Botstick Collective. So I had a very big network in the tactical and kind of aerospace space. So I got on the phone with a guy by the name of Gary O'Neill, who he was a Army Ranger, Hall of Famer, retired Chief Warrant Officer, 7th Group guy, amazing dude. He knew the governor in New Mexico, which Holloman Air Force Base was in New Mexico. So we got on the phone with him. I told him my story. Hey, I was told by the Air Force to go get help. They put me on medications, which I subsequently pulled myself off of and cleared for 1 year, which they said was the requirement. When I went back to go get a physical, they're telling me I can't have it. So here's where we're at. You guys tell us to go get help. We get help. And then all of a sudden you're saying, "Oh, you can't do this anymore." So it caused this massive explosion inside the med group of Halloween to the point where the med group commander, the 06, was the only person allowed to talk to me if I went to Holloman for medical. And in that process, they send me to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for the whole week-long like eval to see if we'll give you. And again, I'm the fucking guinea pig for JTACs right now because this is kind of the first time that they've had to create or write waivers for these medications and these diagnoses and things like that. So I go up to Wright Pat and it's supposed to be a 5-day evaluation. 2 days into it, they're like, "Yeah, no, we're good. Here's your waiver. Here's your class 3 flight physical. Here you go. You're reinstated." Now, here's where the problem is, and here's how fucked up everything is. That took 28 months to happen from the time I set foot at the 7th ASOS to the time that I had my class 3 flight physical. Now, if you understand and know the JTAC regulations,
that's what I was going to say.
I was a non-current JTAC for 4 years as an instructor, despite never leaving the career field and teaching this shit every day. I busted my 60 months, which the reg was written in 1991 for break-in service. Like, meaning if you left the service for more than 60 months, you had to reaccomplish all your JTAC training. I didn't do that. I was in an instructor role that just, there's not enough money and time for us to maintain a green currency while you're teaching at the schoolhouse. So now I'm fighting that regulation, saying, because they're telling me you need to go back to JTAC QC. I said, absolutely not. Here is my diploma from that. I am not going back to a 5.5-week course to get the same thing that's in my hand because you guys are idiots and you cannot interpret a regulation creatively and problem solve with the situation base, knowing, hey, look at this. So that's when I kind of like threw my hands up. All at the same time, Article 15 clothing had been taking off, but I was still 2 feet in. I always made my unit knowing that they were first with everything that I was doing on the side. I did things on the side because I loved it. I loved getting off work and I loved creating. And so I spoke to our CFM at the time. They weren't letting anybody palace chase. I pled my case. I had secured a job with the National Guard to be the West Coast Battlefield Airman recruiter. And that was going to be for combat control, PJ, SR, and TACP for the entire West Coast. And that position was an extra position in the Washington State National Guard that the 116th ASOS had essentially built the requirement and created this position. So the recruiting squadron had an actual beret wearer that would always be the liaison between the Battlefield Airmen career fields and the Air Force. The guy that ran that was a senior master sergeant, and he was awesome. Like, he ran recruiting for the West Coast of it's a Washington National Guard unit, but he had the entire West Coast that was pretty much Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona, and Idaho. So him and I had an amazing relationship, and we talked a lot prior to me getting told that I could have that position. You know, I was working with guys at the Guard Bureau about waivers for 18 series SEALs. I was talking to a lot of LA SWAT guys about, hey, this job is in the National Guard. So my goal from coming from the schoolhouse, especially in 2013-14, when demand was so high for deployment operations, how can I take somebody off the streets and have them qualified and ready to deploy as fast as possible? I need to pull from prior experience. That is my quickest path. So my whole mission and the conversations I was having with that senior master sergeant was, I'm going after prior service people first. I'm not pulling in off the street airmen because this is my fastest way to have deployable assets for these units. And he was like, dude, you're the only one that I've ever heard get it like this. So let's go. So my CFM on active duty approves me Palace Chase, which was unheard of then because he knew this role that I was about to roll into. And it wasn't just going to be for the Guard. I was going to be pumping recruiting materials from the film side of my expertise into the career field for a masses. So everybody was happy with this until about 2 weeks before I ETS. The senior master sergeant that hires me, and I have had this relationship with and a plan and everything, dies at his PT test from a heart attack. Yes, this is
What?
story. So I had a report no later than date to Washington State of December 12th. That was when I was supposed to get to Washington, sign into the recruiting unit, take my role, and start working. I had already had an agreement with him that the following year in October, I needed 30 days off to film Range 15. He was like, absolutely, this is the greatest. This is going to be a huge PR event. We'll throw it because it's going to be filmed in LA. So we're going to have it. He was like, absolutely, this is awesome. He loved every idea. Like, he was excited. He knew the value that all these things could bring. And that was that. So I get a phone call. My ETS date is the 3rd of November of 2014. That is when I'm out of active duty Air Force. So that morning, I get a phone call from this E7 up in Washington State. And he was like, hey, yeah, are you going to be here tomorrow on November 4th? And I'm like, no. He was like, well, that's when you're supposed to be here. I go, no, my report date is December 12th. My TMO doesn't even come to pick up my stuff until like the 25th of November. Like, are you kidding? Like, he was like, no, you're going to need to be here tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I'm in El Paso and I'm not going to be in Seattle, Tacoma tomorrow. He was like, well, you're going to have to be. So I like hang up the phone and I'm confused at first. And then I'm like, and by the way, this is the guy that has taken over for the dude that hired me. So I call him back and I go, hey, real quick, am I going to be the battlefield airman recruiter for the West Coast? He goes, no, you're just going to be a normal recruiter. I go, well, that wasn't what I was hired for. He goes, yeah, well, that position is going away. And I go, okay, am I going to be able to take 30 days off next October? He goes, absolutely not. I go, all right, I'll call you back. So I call Lou Santiago, Chief Master Sergeant Lou Santiago of the 116th ASOS, my best friend Ben Santiago's older brother. And he is the chief. Yeah, you know Benny. Everybody knows Benny.
Party boy. Party Ben.
He's, yeah, old Party Ben. One of the greatest TACPs ever, as a party. So Lou is the chief of the 116th ASOS. Lou also helped me this whole process to get into this recruiting position. Like, he's been my guide for this. I call him. I was like, hey, they just replaced the guy that was in charge. Like, he's telling me I'm going to be a normal recruiter. He's telling me like I can't do anything that I had built all this plan for. And Lou goes, hang on a second. And he was like, hey, Skype me in like 20 minutes. I was like, okay. So I Skype him, and he has the commander in the room, and he's like, we're enlisting you into the National Guard right now. So he holds the paper. I hold my hand up. I'm in a restaurant, like a Mexican restaurant in El Paso, with Leo Jenkins, the author, the Ranger. And I enlist into the Air National Guard as a traditional guardsman now. But by the way, this position was an active guard slot. So I was moving from active duty to active guard, meaning I would have worked the regular normal military 5 days a week, however it is. And so he faxes, I'm right next to a UPS store, faxes the contract. I sign it, fax it back. He submits it to the MPF on Camp Murray, and we get a confirmation like within an hour, boom, you're enlisted into the Air National Guard. So homie calls me at 5:00 that evening. Like, all right, well, did you get everything straightened out? And what time am I going to see you tomorrow? I go, oh, you're not going to see me tomorrow. He goes, excuse me, Sergeant. I was like, yeah, you're not going to see me. You're not going to see me tomorrow. You're not going to see me ever, actually. And he was like, you mind explaining? I go, I'm actually in the 116th ASOS now. And if you want to go call Lou Santiago and bitch, like, you can, but fuck this, fuck you, I'm out. Like, hung up. And so he calls Lou fucking, what the fuck? He was like, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, he's in the 116th. You can fuck off. Like, and that's how I joined the Air National Guard in 2014.
Well, I really did just try and skip over all that. I had no idea that it was that contentious.
It was a saga.
Now I'm scared to take a PT test.
And to complete the circle, yeah. So as I'm in the unit, by the way, which the 116th is the most phenomenal TACP unit I've ever been in. I tell people that ask me they always ask, what was it like going guard? I go, going to a guard TACP unit was what you had in your head in tech school of what a TACP unit was. It's awesome. Everybody loves each other. Everybody's fucking friends. Everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to train. Everybody wants to do more. Like, it was the most positive and fun experience I've had. I spent almost 4 years there, and it was phenomenal, or about 3 years. But they are the greatest. The Huskies are hands down the greatest TACP unit that we've ever had. Like, they have everything figured out. They're sharp as shit. I had one of the greatest commanders I've ever had by the name of Rad Geikus. That's a whole nother saga of stories with him. But he was a Kiowa pilot that got out after 10 years, went to work for Microsoft for about 2 months, said, fuck this, and saw a brochure to be an ALO and was like, I'll do that. Like, so we essentially just had an Army commander.
That's perfect.
Which worked out really nice. But the 116th, their chief JTAC guy and their C, they heard my cries of calling stupid on the reg, and they were like, okay, we're going to fix this. So then they were like, here's how we do it. We're going to give you 5 evals. We're going to give you 5 evals from nobody in our chain of command. So they called Fort Campbell, and they had a guy from the 19th ASOS, I believe. That's right. Is that right? 19th in Fort Campbell, maybe. 20th is
Sure.
Fort
Yep,
Drum.
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So their evaluator came out, gave me a JTAC eval. Then I got evaled by a Brit JTAC C, Lenny. Then I got evaled by a Canadian JTAC I. Then I got evaled by a Marine 04 JTAC C. And then I finally got evaled by our own 1/16th JTAC C, and they grabbed all these evals, 5 back-to-back ones, and they sent it up to half and was like, can you guys please cut the bullshit? We do not need to send this guy back to JTAC QC. Here you go. He passed 5 evals, none of which we had, we had no fucking stake in this. And we were on the cusp of getting to an answer to that by that time I was like about to get out, and it was time. So we just kind of gave up. So I never got a kind of, closure on my JTAC saga. Maybe they'll give it to me now, like for fun.
I mean, not if I got anything to say about it.
You're never getting the patch, that's for sure.
No.
Well, it's just funny that this whole saga started because you made the mistake of being honest, with a doctor. And I know, that's probably the story that, spawned the entire community's response, where you never go to the doctor and tell the truth. That's been, the rule for my entire career. You never go to the doctor and tell the truth, because it's just one of those sticky things. And I think it's gotten a little bit better, but still, I'm on the process of, starting to lean towards retirement. I go to the doctors and I'm like, yeah, I've never said this before because I wanted to keep doing my job. So now I'm gonna lay it all on you,
Yeah, and I can definitely say it's getting better now. Because now they finally realized, oh man, we were liars. And they kept getting caught lying. And so now they can't. So now things are definitely better. They're not as good as it can be, because again, the inherent problem with the military is we like to use whiteout, meaning we open our books and our regs and we update a couple things and that's it, when we should be throwing that thing in the trash and rewriting it. There are so many times in my career that I said, we need to change this reg. And somebody said, you can't change the reg. I go, yes, you can. We wrote it. And also it was written before anybody had ever done unconventional warfare in Afghanistan or Iraq. Nobody has done casts like this. Nobody has had to employ air power like this. So why are we chaining ourselves to things that were written in the 90s? The Marines, the one thing I'll give the Marines, they show up to JPub rewrites with a fucking army. And that is why they have completely changed cast regulations, because we blow that thing off oh man, there's a JPub rewrite. Who's in trouble? Send him.
Well, they also meet the week prior to they all come with a shared message. They are on the same page. So if I ask this Marine major or I ask this Marine gunny, verbatim, it's almost like they got a play card that they pull out and they're like, oh, look at that. This is the answer.
They figured out how to make the changes they want, and they got all of them. That's why.
And they every time.
That's why you guys are rated in the goddamn, what is that fucking thing? The battle rhythm or whatever, the play-by-play now. It's
the cascade.
That was a fucking Marine thing. God damn it, Marines. You fucked up the JPub.
after you just gave them credit for it too, for being good about it. But
no,
there's so many problems.
They're good about changing it. They know how to change it. I didn't say the changes were for better.
Sometimes it's a swing
if
and a
anything,
miss.
Their changes are the ones that are opening the doors for the Army to have their own JTACs and never need us again.
Well, they love that game plan stuff. Nice.
The game plan.
That's what it's called. I mean, that's what it's called. The game plan. That was their idea.
I know.
And I don't like. Yeah,
the last time I controlled, and they're like, "Is it a BOT or BOC?" Oh, what the fuck is that?
Oh yeah, it has been a while for you then.
Listen, I remember when Keyhole was new.
It was provocative.
There's a lot of JTACery going on here. I don't know what to say.
I'm sorry, Trent. I'm sorry. We just, he's a patch. I think patches are nerds, so we're just kind of like going for that.
I'll dig it.
We're gonna do a massive 4-hour AAR after this.
Yeah.
No, I didn't really get to interact with patches at all because that all happened after, you went through the first course in what, 11, 12?
Yeah, I got there in 11 and then we validated in 12.
Yes. So then after that, like we got our first patch at the 7th, right as I was leaving. And they're really, we had a weapons and tactics shop, but it wasn't very good. Like it wasn't what it should have been, like what patches turned it into. And then after that, we didn't get one until I was leaving the 116th. So I never got to like really see what they implemented and how they did it. So kind of sad I missed it, but I was happy that whole thing got, like, you guys really championed something that we never thought we'd see, because the officers love to hold that thing so dearly.
Yeah, it happened. So we got it. How about, I do want to pause though, because I know Trent really wants to hit this, and I think it's important because I know what he's about to highlight, and I want to make sure that it gets out there because you brought up something that's really important. Press, Trent.
I was just going to talk about the responsibility of reg interpretation and how we have the reputation for being cowboys because we don't always follow the rules, but what the people don't see is the second and third order effects of following the rules or trying to follow the regs. And what we were doing is going out there and just to get the job done. And so like the inability for certain people in positions of leadership to interpret the regulations and do things that are common sense kind of put us in the hole for a long time. And now people are like, well, you guys don't even follow the rules. It's like, well, the rules don't make any sense. So like there was like this 20-year cycle of things going on. And then it's just, you paint the entire community as a bunch of cowboys when that community was we were the ones out there getting the job done.
I always fire back, Trent, with somebody wrote that rule, and that person wrote that rule without a perspective that we have now. So for you to think that rule, like I will go up against anybody all day long that is just a book person because I'm a creative problem solver. I look at something and go, there is no walls for me on this. How would I fix it? Whereas people that are just robotic and can merely follow a checklist, those people will fail, and they will fail with a mistake that has already been made before.
Right. But I mean, we've all had that experience where you have that leader that is more like the creative problem solver, right? And is willing to interpret things and get things done and changed for the betterment of their people and for the, mission success versus that person that pulls out the checklist and is like, paragraph 4.6, like we can't do that anymore. And it's like, that's not written in stone. That didn't come off the Mount Sinai or whatever. That's just guidelines that are flexible or should be flexible.
Or they should constantly change. I mean, let's take Reds, for example. When you first came in, Peaches, Reds were a completely different monster. Like I remember we were going off of the 2001 JPub when I first came in, and the 0.1% PI of a GBU 12 was like 325 meters. Okay, what did that change to in the 2008 rewrite? It was like 180. Like because we started doing it. Because we had so many iterations of JTACs dropping bombs closer and closer to themselves in a danger close situation, we realized that it was indeed a little bit safer. Granted, the TBI effects probably aren't great, but
might be paying for that now.
Yeah, we're paying for that in the long run, but you weren't getting fragged and you weren't getting blasted.
That's valid. Yeah, the just taking a step back just a little bit, and I don't necessarily want to get stuck on it, but the POTF now, the preservation of the family and the force, or the force and family, whatever it is, like SOCOM has recognized that and is trying to do better by the operators out there. As in, like, I have noticed, at least since 2018, when I started going to the doctors, and being honest at that point, things like, I don't think that I've been the NIF unless it was for some kind of medication that they happen to give me. But even then, it's like, okay, well, it's it's temporary. And why are we deniffing for something that shouldn't really affect? So for people that, because I know that we have thrown out a lot of acronyms in this, deniff means that I can't jump, I can't dive, I can't control that kind of stuff. So essentially I can just work out and I can go shoot, or I can drive or something like that. I can't actually do the full, every aspect of my job. And there are certain medications or certain injuries or whatever that will prohibit you from doing that. So that's our frustration with it. And that's why folks aren't completely honest when it comes to the doctors, because they're afraid, because the mentality that all of us have are, don't keep me from training, don't keep me from deploying, don't keep me from doing my job, because I will do everything that I possibly can to get out the door and go do what I was trained to do and what I came in to do. And
now I got on the other forever. Those regulations though were written for somebody that's sitting by themselves in a cockpit. And that's the problem, is they weren't flexing to us. I mean, remember when they would make us ground test medication as if like we're going to fall asleep holding a ruck? Like that doesn't damage anything. We just fall over. Like, so you're taking a reg that was written for a guy sitting in an F-16 flying along, and you're applying it to one of us who is rucking around with a rubber duck or a rifle. And it's like, no, we don't need to do that. And nobody ever stood up and just said, hey, this is kind of dumb and pointless. Like, I felt like I was a loner all the time in the military, because I'd always be like, wait, what? Why? Like, did anybody ask why? Because I don't see, like, you guys are just adopting a blanket, one person shits their pants, everybody wears diapers approach to leadership.
Well, what about the JTAC program? The JTAC program followed aircrew stuff.
Yes.
Right? Because it was modeled after aircrew stuff, when even now, like when I was at SOCOM at the headquarters, I would argue like to half, and the JCAS community is like, hey, we've got to get away from this aircrew mentality on JTAC stuff, like just for the 18-month and the 24-month stuff, like, or it's just, it's frustrating. I mean, and it still exists.
Even currency, because here's what's frustrating. We do not do a good job at taking data and then adjusting everything based on the data. Okay, so we look at 20 years worth of war from 2001 to 2021, and we had how many actual legit Air Force JTAC fratricide incidents? I think we have 4. Is that correct?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Okay, so we had 4 frat incidents out of how many sorties flown?
Oh my gosh.
All right, so let's look at that data now and run that percentage and go, okay, maybe a night live and a laser control every 90 days is a little too much. We've got some wiggle room. Like, so all this money.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is how it's always been, and that's how it will remain.
But that's what I mean. ACC coming back and saying, we don't have the cash, gas, and asses to sit in the seats and fly for you every fucking JTAC 3 times every 90 days. Like, great. Let's look at our data, pat ourselves on the back that, hey, we did a good job. 4 to fucking 200,000, 400,000. God, how many employments had happened in 20 years? Like, I would love to know that number. We did good. All right, now let's look at how we become more efficient with our regulation. We maintain our training standard, but we also modify currency because it's not necessary. As long as you're going through the motions and things like that. The sim is a prime example. Very, very good and useful tool to keep somebody sharp, keep somebody going. Rotary wing aviation. Another very good tool that keeps you sharp, keeps you on point, keeps you following the checklist. Like, are we safe? Are we safe? Like, that's one of the frustrations. It's like, there's no efficiency-based model for us to go, okay, how can we maintain and do this job based on the data that we can analyze now over the last 20 years?
All valid.
Well, there's a gap, right, between problem and solution, and then the inability to forecast second and third order effects. Just like when they came to you, they'd identified a solution after 8-10 years at war, that these guys have, psych issues. and they rushed to a solution. They said, you should go talk to these people. It's not going to affect your career, without actually following through and working through the second and third order effects with you. You know what I mean? Like they gave you the solution and then just like let you go out there into the wilderness alone and figure out what was going to happen, and not follow through with the second and third order effects mitigation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You're 100%
to
right.
anybody?
Like,
But
no,
but
it was
also
it
going
was a
back.
key E9s that if I didn't have them, like, and if I didn't know how to, like, if I wasn't constantly talking to everybody, you know, that was the one thing that was on my side for that whole thing, is I had Ivan Rankin and I had Pedro that were both like, oh, fuck no. Like, so I had two E9s that were ready to go to war because I presented it to in a way that was ironclad. It's like, here was what they said, here's what I did, and here's now what they're doing. And they're like, well, we can't argue with that. All right, we're with you.
Yeah, and we've got to be more open to change. Like we really do. And even
Well,
now,
the problem, like, it's ego-based decision making. Like Trent was talking about it earlier. Like, how many times have we watched a decision be made strictly on ego because somebody wanted the credit, somebody wanted it to be their idea, or somebody didn't want to see another unit or another beret or another person succeed rather than themselves?
well, that that goes right into who, like, man, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but is there a more Yeah, I'm going to, because that's what I do. But is there a more toxic community to each other than the veteran community? I've seen more people, more active duty and veteran people hate on you and Black Rifle, you, Evan, Dan Holloway, Tim Kennedy, freaking Mike Glover, like, name them, right? I've seen more people hate on you guys, and I think it's all based off of success. And that's not to say that you know somebody hasn't been wrong in the past, but it's like, why can't you be happy for somebody's success? We've been on the same receiving end of hate from people, right? Not to
Mostly
the level
Aaron.
that you guys have.
Yeah.
Mostly Aaron, but like, you know, but I mean, like, I don't understand it. Like, why can't you be happy for somebody and go and provide feedback? That's fine. Provide feedback like, hey man, kind of what you said here was incorrect, or maybe you shaped it or presented it incorrectly, and this is the way moving forward. But other than that, it's just like, nah, man, screw those dudes. It's like,
Well, I mean, I'll
okay.
I'll answer that for you, like, because over the last 10 years, I have had a very large purview of the internet. Like, I, you know, have managed 450 Facebook groups with 600,000 people in them. Like, the accounts and things that we have that have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers. So you're just looking at this giant perspective of, like, wide. And I'll tell you what, like, it exists in every community. Like us saying we're the worst to each other. No, I've seen it in every single one. And I mean down the car community, every single one. There is the people that are trying new things and gaining traction over it. Like look at Hoonigan. Hoonigan is the largest, you know, car, like, I would say, like, channel, like, but also it's a lifestyle brand, and it's also, and they produce all this stuff. You know, they produce Gymkhana series, they do this versus that, they do all this stuff. But there's a giant portion of the car world and car enthusiast world that hate on them because counterculture is a way to be cool. When you look at, you know, humans just are natural at, oh, everybody likes this. There's that guy that's like, well, I'm not going to like it, and I'm cooler because I don't like it. Like, and now here's my club. Like, so that, I think, spreads everywhere. And when it comes to the military, like, and you know this, everybody that you have, every personality in your unit that you've seen, when you do something like this, like what you guys do, by saying, hey, we're providing an informative tool to help recruiting and retention for people into our force. It's the only thing of its kind. The guys that don't do that, are going to piss and moan and whine. And they're gonna say how much better they could do it, or you didn't explain this right, or you didn't do that right, despite the fact that they don't know what it takes to fire up the camera and set the microphone up, and you only got a little bit of time, so you have to abbreviate certain things. You don't get to fucking just sit here for all day long and yap and explain and everything. So it's like they're always gonna shoot holes in this shit, but they at the end of the day they don't fucking do anything. Like, so it's like, great, go do your own, and then you'll see. So it's like, it's coming back to my theory versus reality thing. Like, everybody loves to say in theory, oh, in theory, your show could have been better. Okay, how? Where? Why? Are you going to do it better? No? Okay, then you're just fucking piping off out a bunch of fucking theory. Look, I would do it, but I don't know how to do audiovisual gear. Yeah, none of us did at one point. We just fucking bought
still
it,
don't.
and picked it up and plugged it in and said, well, we'll see if this works. Like, so again, like, yeah, there is this, like, there's a counterculture to think it's cool. And it's just because, we're the ones that are putting things out. And at the end of the day, like, that's what people get wrapped around the axle so much. It's like, hey man, all I like to do was film things that were funny. Like, I'm a film guy. My room right there is full of every piece of film gear I've collected for 24 years, because when I was 13 years old, my dad pushed me into skateboarding. And as a skateboarder, that's what you did. You filmed a skate park and you tried to get sponsored. Well, I just kept doing that when I got in the military, and I wanted to show people that TACP existed because no one knew. The most accurate movie depiction of TACPs to date is In the Army Now with Pauly Shore.
Yeah. Okay.
What he has a mule. It's the only movie with a mule.
I know. I just, yeah. Okay.
Things you didn't think were going to be referenced on this show. Pauly Shore.
I bet he didn't. I'm sure he's watching too, though.
I think it's frustrating though, because like you see it in the active duty side and outside of it, and it's like, like if you utilize your resources in your community, like, to get stuff done, you could get a lot done. And I think that's the problem, though, is you hear all this flack and you hear people complaining, you hear, we're having a hard time recruiting and on our side of the fence, it's like, well, you have resources. Yeah, like, we're here to help, but like, there's just all these roadblocks and people. Anyway, it can be frustrating at times.
Here's what I could say that I've seen. Socially, we've changed. In 2003, as an E4, if I met a Green Beret, I would listen, and I would be excited to learn anything from that person, and I would respect it, and it would be an expertise. But here in 2022, someone that hasn't even been to basic yet, or someone that got out after 3 years as a Cav Scout, will jump on Instagram and argue with a 20-year Green Beret about tactics and about how they know more, or he doesn't know shit, or your pistol is garbage. Like, the internet has given everyone the ability to spark an opinion without any sort of achievement. That's the biggest thing I see all the time. It's like, you want to fucking shoot holes in me? Great. You got a long way to go before you're even close to this level. Like, so start building those achievements and getting that experience. But if you want to come to the table where I respect your opinion equal to mine, you got a lot to do.
I wonder, though, if that is because we don't have it's easy to sit behind a keyboard or with your thumbs and say stuff and forget that there's a person on the other end of it. A person that has had, whether they're experienced like that, what you're talking about, or just a person that is maybe going through some shit, or maybe has TBIs and dealing with some shit. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I think it's just been the social curve of what it's attention. Number one, like it's the addiction to attention.
Yeah.
So social media has made everybody addicts to the notifications. And if they can poke and argue, or they get validated by, one of us or Mike Glover, Andy Stumpf, or anybody like responding back and fucking slaying them, then they won. Because look at me, I'm sitting in my living room. I couldn't run a mile if my life depended on it, but I can talk shit to a guy on Instagram, and look, now everybody thinks I'm cool. It's like, no, it's the opposite, man. You make yourself look like a clown.
I will say there are times when I will look for when JT responds to someone's comments on like a post on Instagram, and I can like, if I'm in the bathroom, I'm just like, I'm gonna run this thread, because I'm like, when
I won't stop.
Yeah, when you get going, I love it.
I won't stop. Like, and that's the thing is a lot of these kids are new to the internet. It's like, man, I've been doing this since 2004. Like, let's go. Like ran like, and that like in 2005, I created a site called Air Force Crossroads. And that was actually a way back then when I was deployed that a lot of deployed people could talk to their family members, because it wasn't blocked yet on NipperNet, because it was, I had built it and it was a whole forum. And then eventually, another site bought it and picked it up and created Air Force Crossroads. I don't know what it is today. But I also was one of the managers of the MySpace group USAF. And that was like me just slaying the dragon of security forces guys, posting cool guy pics all the time and like just demolishing people. So it's like, dude, I've been trolling people on the internet for fucking 2 decades. Like, walk into my web because I'm manipulating you exactly where I know that you will go.
Hey, one of the things I wanted to hit, and so that it doesn't seem like we're just talking, just bitching, but like, you've been out for a while now, and you are still what it seems to me is deeply involved with the TACP community. Like, where do you find the time for that, and what are, like, how involved are you, or is it just kind of like a poor perception on my part?
No, I mean, all my peers are the guys running the show now. Jimbo Spreeder, Stephen Jorgensen just retired. He's one of my best friends. Clint Campbell's now 720th command chief.
I'm no kidding seeing him in about 30 minutes.
Oh, great. Please tell him I said hi. Are you at Herbie, or are you in Washington? Where are you?
No, I'm in Vegas now.
Oh, okay.
He's
cool.
out. Yeah. He's out here visiting, doing a site visit, and I'm meeting him and Daniels and like,
tell him I said hey.
More like an hour.
But it's the thing is like, we just talk. We talk, and if there's something I can help with, I was on the phone with CZ yesterday. Like, I talk to CZ like every 3 days. For those of you who don't know, he's the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Like, because like, I know him. I've known him since 2005. And with his position, the one thing I know is I know how to message to the younger and mid-tier NCO audience and the things that they need, like so I love talking with him about, hey, here's how to speak to these guys. Here's the things they're saying. I fill him in with what the kind of mid-range attitude of the active duty military person is, because I have that purview with all the accounts and things that we manage. I can see what is on people's mind. The Airman NCO, Senior NCO Air Force page, like watching what goes down in there and paying attention. Like, I actually sent CZ something yesterday from that they had copied an email. The commander was essentially telling everybody to lie to the general when they visited. I was like, hey, CZ, throw this over to the general.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's good though, because when you got out, right? Like, Trent and I are corrupted, right? We're corrupted because we are part of the problem now, right? I'd like to think that we're not, but I have no doubt that there are things that I am, stuck in my way about. I try not to be. I try and be very open about things and open to change, but like, I probably part of the problem. I guess we'd have to ask people at the 2-2 and at the weapons school right now. I don't know.
Well, it's a distance thing sometimes. You get too far away from like where the rubber meets the road, and it can be difficult to see it. And if you're not willing to listen to the guys that are down there grinding, and leaving themselves on the road, then it's hard to know what the solutions are, what the problems really are, because from a higher level, it's just, it's all numbers and moving stuff around, and it gets real impersonal real quick.
And put yourself in the space. Always put yourself in the space. Like, sit there and exist in it, and run yourself through a couple scenarios and go, this works or this doesn't work. Okay, shit. All right. Here's why this won't work.
Yeah. And on the other side of that is, like, I am also constrained by what the Air Force, like the systems that the Air Force has in place. Like, so I will do my damnedest to try and help people out or fix somebody's problem. Sometimes, like, my hands are tied. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, but
no,
I think
it's not the way. That's bullshit. It's not the way it is. It's just sometimes I can't.
Well, you
can't manipulate the change,
like,
or I can't be the change factor.
Even though you are an E9, you're not king. And if we were king,
right,
yeah, we could gavel down. I mean, even in my business, I'm one of the founders, one of the owners. There's still, I can't just operate in a silo. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, so it's like, yeah, there are so many other things in play, and if we were king for a day, maybe we could fix it.
Yep.
Or get way worse. You never know. It could be way worse. Yeah. Yeah, but like, it's one of those things. I think one of the good things about our smaller communities is where I sit. If I get like a phone call, for example, from a chief, and they're like, hey, I have a guy here who's interested in getting orders, or yada, yada, yada. Like, I know according to the Air Force, like, I probably shouldn't talk to these people directly or whatever it is. But like, I know everybody. I'll be like, hey, who has this guy's phone number? And I can call this staff sergeant and be like, hey, how did this conversation actually go? What do you really want to do? And like, I think that's imperative that you maintain those roots.
That's a failure of just us, though, because when you look at like the Navy and the way the Navy does a detailer calls an E5, an E6, an E7, an E8 and says, okay, here are the things available for you next. Which one is your top choice, and things like that. We never did that. That's a failure in the Air Force's part. Like, the one thing that I don't like about my career was I wanted to go to Germany and I wanted to go to Korea, but it didn't matter. No matter what I did, no matter how many deployments I volunteered for, no matter what I did, there is no way for anybody to ever give me the path to go to Germany or Korea. And that's kind of shitty. Like, the Navy has it figured out. Let's just model their program. But that's ego-based leadership. Are you kidding? We're not going to, we can't do that. I mean, we saw it in the middle of 2005, 6, 7, when we went to the bucketed program of deployment cycles. We took that from the Navy, because all of a sudden the Air Force went, wait a minute, the Navy has been sending people on ship deployments their entire existence. How do they do it? Let's copy it and put it over here, because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, but and processes are always good, right? Like, in theory, but if you're not invested in your people, like, you should be way more invested in your people than you are in your own career. Like, they're not invested in you. You should be invested in everything that you have influence over. And so whether or not the process exists, I think you have to maintain that sight picture that you're invested in everybody that you're, have some kind of control over. Stop talking about it.
No, that's good. Hey, JT, I know I told you beforehand that we go an hour, and that's where we're at. So I want to be respectful of your time. And at the same time, like I said, I got to go meet Colonel Daniels and Chief Campbell. So.
Oh, he gone. He gone. Oh, dang.
Oh, did you hear that? He thought it was a one's ready flag. Man.
Oh, man. Is that the one?
All right, we'll send you one, man. I sent you a shirt, but I mean, the BR, the Black Rifle ones are.
That one feels really good.
Yeah,
I like your shirt.
Soft.
Well, thank you for finally having me on. Even though
I know you
just bickering like hens.
I know. You would think that we had been avoiding it for some reason, but that's not the case at all. So we'll have to have you back on. Like I said, I know you're busy racing and all that kind of stuff. So we definitely appreciate you giving us the time of day. Cool. Well, we'll hit you up and get you back on at a good time.